Tonight, you will drift back into a forgotten world. A world of silence. A world of mystery. A world shaped by the fall of Rome. This is the story of the Dark Ages. Take a slow breath. Let your thoughts soften. Let your body rest. The year is 476. Rome has fallen. The empire has faded. Marble streets are quiet. Statues are broken. The great legions are gone. The world feels different now. Slower. Darker. Emptier. Tonight, you are stepping into a world between history and dream. Let your mind rest as we begin our journey into the Dark Ages. When Rome fell, the world did not collapse in a single moment. It did not shatter like a dropped piece of glass. Instead, it faded. Softly. Slowly. Quietly. Like the final glow of a candle. Flickering. And then growing dim. For centuries, Rome had been the center of everything. The heart of Europe. The mind of civilization. The protector of roads, markets, and knowledge. A giant that held the ancient world together. But now, that giant was gone. Its footsteps disappeared. Its voice grew silent. The marble buildings that once shined in the sun now stood cracked and cold. Grass grew between the stones. Wind echoed where crowds once gathered. Where senators debated. Only silence remained. Where legions marched. Only lonely dust drifted across the roads. Imagine the great Roman road. The Via Appia. Once filled with soldiers. Caravans. Messengers. And travelers from faraway lands. Now, it is empty. Quiet. The stones feel abandoned. The path leads nowhere certain. Merchants who once traded spices, silk, grain, and metals now stay close to home. There is no one to protect them on long journeys. No soldiers to guard the borders. No law to punish thieves and bandits. Everything becomes local. Small. Isolated. People no longer think about the whole empire. They think only about their village. Their family. Their next meal. Picture a tiny settlement. A few wooden huts. Clustered together beneath tall dark trees. A thin trail of smoke rises from a cooking fire. Children sit near the doorway. Their feet brown with dust. A dog sleeps by the road. A woman carries water from a stream. A man repairs a simple wooden fence. This is life now. Quiet. Fragile. Uncertain. Because without Rome, there is no great system holding the world together. No shared order. No central power. Across the land, small kingdoms rise. Local chiefs gain influence. Every valley becomes its own world. Every village becomes a tiny universe. And the forests, the deep forests, grow thicker, darker, wilder. Wolves return to places where they had long been hunted away. Bears walk near the edges of villages. Travelers who wander too far may never return. The nights feel longer now. Colder. Quieter. Without Roman lamps. Darkness covers the land like a heavy blanket. The only light comes from fires made by families trying to stay warm. People sit close together, listening to the wind whisper through the trees. They listen for danger. They listen for animals. They listen for the unknown. But they also listen for each other. Stories are told to pass the time. Stories of heroes. Stories of spirits. Stories of ancient Rome. that now feel like distant dreams. For many, Rome becomes a memory they never even experienced. A legend passed down by tired voices around a quiet fire. Years pass. Generations pass. And slowly, people learn to live in this darker, smaller, quieter world. Farmers plant crops. Shepherds guard their flocks. Mothers bake bread. Children play with sticks and stones. Life continues. Not with the ambition of an empire, but with the gentle rhythm of survival. These early centuries after Rome are filled with uncertainty, confusion, fear. But among all the challenges, there is a strange, unexpected peace. A slower world. A simpler world. A world where families depend on each other more than on kings, or armies, or distant empires. This is Europe. After the fall of Rome. A continent drifting through shadow, searching for a new identity, and waiting for a new dawn that is still centuries away. After the fall of Rome, life across Europe became simple. Very simple. Not simple in the sense of peaceful luxury, but simple in the sense of routine, necessity, and survival. People lived close to the land, close to the soil, close to the seasons. Most families were farmers, not by choice, but because farming was the only way to survive. In a world without stores, without trade routes, and without powerful cities to depend on. Each morning began with the rising sun, warm light, soft mist, roosters calling across the fields. Families woke slowly, stretching beside small fires that had burned through the night. Homes were tiny, built of wood, straw, and mud. The roofs were uneven. The floors were hard earth. The windows were no more than small holes, covered with cloth or hide. Inside, there was a single room. One fire. One table. A few stools. A few blankets. Simple. Quiet. Fragile. Breakfast was plain. Bread if available. Maybe porridge. Sometimes cheese. If the animals had been healthy. Children helped from a young age. There was no childhood in the modern sense. Children learned to work as soon as they could stand and walk. They carried wood. They fetched water. They gathered sticks for the fire. They watched the sheep or goats. They followed their parents into the fields. Life moved with the rhythm of nature. In spring, the earth softened. Seeds were planted with hope and quiet prayer. The soil held their future. In summer, the sun grew strong. Fields shimmered with green. Families worked from morning until the light faded. In autumn, crops were harvested. Wheat, barley, vegetables. Every grain mattered. Every scrap of food was precious. Winter was the test. The true test. Cold winds. Long nights. Thin blankets. Narrow meals. If the harvest had been poor, people worried. They counted every loaf of bread. Every handful of grain. Every drop of oil. There were no shops. No warehouses. No markets filled with goods. Only what you grew. Only what you saved. Only what you could protect. The animals were part of the family. Goats gave milk. Chickens gave eggs. Sheep gave wool. Losing an animal was like losing a member of the household. It meant less food, Less warmth. Less survival. Tools were simple. Wooden plows. Metal knives. Crude axes. Stone mills for grinding grain. Nothing was wasted. Clothes were patched repeatedly. Metal scraps were melted and reused. Broken tools were repaired. Again and again. Days passed. Slowly. Steadily. Wrapped in the same familiar routines. Wake with the sun. Work the fields. Tend the animals. Prepare food. Sit by the fire. Sleep when darkness comes. In many villages, there were no books. No writing. No music beyond simple songs. Stories were carried. From mouth to mouth. And from generation to generation. People gathered by the fire. In the evenings, the flames flickered softly. Children listened to elders tell stories of spirits, heroes, ancient battles, and distant places they had never seen. The firelight danced on wooden walls. Shadows swayed as the wind whispered outside. The world beyond the village felt enormous and unknown. Most people never traveled more than a few miles from where they were born. Their entire universe was the fields they farmed, the forest edge, the small church, and the homes of their neighbors. The sounds of daily life were gentle and constant. The soft bleating of sheep, the clucking of chickens, the steady strike of a wooden millstone. In the distance, dogs barked. Birds circled above plowed earth. The wind rustled through tall grass. Life was fragile, yet resilient. Humble, yet meaningful. People did not seek glory. They sought warmth, food, family, shelter, small joys, a good harvest, a healthy newborn, a safe winter. These simple moments brought comfort in a world filled with uncertainty. Daily life in the Dark Ages was not grand. It was not shining or legendary. It was a slow, steady, quiet rhythm. A rhythm shaped by nature, survival, and the soft heartbeat of small communities spread across a vast, shadowed land. After the fall of Rome, the great libraries of the ancient world slowly disappeared. Cities became smaller. Schools faded. Teachers moved away. But knowledge did not vanish. It survived in the quietest, most peaceful places across the land. These places were the monasteries. Imagine a stone building standing alone in the middle of deep forests, or high on a lonely hill, far from villages, far from danger, far from the noise of the changing world. The wind moves softly around the walls. Birds rest on the rooftop. A single candle glows through a tiny window. As night settles, inside, life is slow, orderly, quiet. The monks wake before sunrise. They walk silently through cold hallways, with bare feet, touching smooth stone floors. They gather in a simple chapel, lit only by candles. They speak softly. They pray. They breathe in the stillness of dawn. Their days are built on rhythm, a rhythm of prayer, study, work, and reflection. There is no hurry. There is no noise. Only time, moving gently through peaceful hours. And in these quiet places, books live. Books breathe. Books survive. Monks copy manuscripts. By hand. Not with machines. Not with printing presses. But with ink. And feather quills. And patience. That stretches across decades. Imagine the scene. A wooden desk. A sheet of parchment. A monk leaning forward. Under candlelight. His hands steady. His breathing slow. His eyes focused. On the delicate curves. Of each letter. Stroke by stroke. Word by word. Page by page. He carries the knowledge. Of ancient civilizations. Into the future. Without these monks. The writings of ancient Rome. Ancient Greece. Early medicine. Early science. And early history. Would have disappeared. Forever. But thanks to them. The wisdom of the past. Waited quietly. Preserved in ink. And in silence. Outside the monastery walls. The world was unpredictable. Kings fought for land. Knights rode across valleys. Villages struggled to survive. But inside, the candlelight never failed. The books were safe. The ideas were safe. The stories were safe. Think of the sound. The soft scratch of a quill. The faint crackle of a wick. The whisper of turning pages. As centuries-old knowledge is preserved again. And again. Monks did not seek glory. They did not seek power. They did not seek wealth. Their mission was simple, pure, steady, to protect the light of human knowledge in a world that had grown dark. Many monasteries also held gardens, herbs for medicine, fruit trees, vegetables, bees. They produced food for nearby villages and offered help during hard winters. In some regions, monasteries became the only safe places for travelers. Strangers could knock on the wooden doors and be welcomed with bread, warm water, and a simple place to rest. The monks believed that every life had value, that every visitor was a precious soul, sent by fate or by the divine. There were also scriptoriums, rooms dedicated only to writing, only to copying, only to preserving. Light from narrow windows fell onto wide tables. Shelves held scrolls and pages and ink pots made from clay. For hours at a time, the monks worked in almost perfect silence. The world outside may have been filled with fear and chaos, but inside these walls there was calm, structure, purpose, peace. And it is in this peace that the future was quietly protected. Centuries later, when Europe would begin to grow again, to learn again, to explore again, the knowledge kept by these gentle hands would become the foundation for a new world. But for now, in the soft candlelight, in the calm of the dark ages, the monks continue their quiet work, turning pages, copying lines, saving the past for the future. One stroke of ink, one letter, one breath at a time. As the monasteries glowed softly with candlelight and silence, the world outside their stone walls was very different. It was a world ruled by kings, shaped by knights, and guided by faith. But even this world, the world of warriors and rulers, moved slowly and quietly beneath the vast sky of the Dark Ages. The rise of local kings. After the fall of Rome, there was no single emperor to command the land, no single ruler to unite the people. So power broke into many pieces. Small kingdoms formed, like islands, in a wide sea of forests and valleys. A king in one region might rule only a few villages. Another king might control a single valley. Their crowns were simple. Their thrones were wooden chairs by small fires. But to the people who lived under them, these kings were symbols of stability, symbols of order, symbols of protection, in a world that felt unpredictable and wild. At night, bonfires burned in the center of their halls. Shadows danced on wooden walls. Advisors spoke softly about crops, storms, and nearby enemies. These kings were not like the emperors of Rome. They did not control millions. They did not build massive cities. But they did something deeply important. They gave their people a sense of belonging, a sense of safety, a sense of home. The world of knights. Beside the kings stood the knights, warriors covered in armor, riding strong horses, trained to protect the land. But in the early Dark Ages, knights were not yet the shining figures we imagine today. Their armor was simple. Their weapons were worn. Their horses were not yet the powerful, war-bred animals of later centuries. Still, they had courage, discipline, loyalty. A knight's days were filled with practice, sharpening blades, repairing shields, training in open fields with wooden swords and straw targets. They learned to move silently through forests, to ride swiftly across muddy paths, to defend villages from thieves and rival clans. At night, they gathered in long halls with other warriors. The fire burned low. Dogs slept beside the benches. Mead was passed around in wooden cups. The knights listened to stories of old battles, old heroes, and old kingdoms that once stood strong. Their lives were not glorious. They were demanding, dangerous, hard. But their presence made the people feel safer, made the kingdoms feel stronger, made the long nights feel a little less uncertain. Faith, the quiet guide. And through all of this, through the struggles and storms, there was one force that reached every village, every home, every soul. Faith. Faith was the quiet thread that connected everyone. During the Dark Ages, church bells echoed across valleys. Their slow, steady chimes rolled through morning mist and signaled the start of each new day. People gathered in small chapels made of wood and stone. The air inside smelled of wax and old incense. Candles flickered against rough walls. Here, people prayed for rain, When the earth was dry, they prayed for sun. When storms lasted too long, they prayed for health. During harsh winters, they prayed for peace. In times of fear, for many, faith was the only light. In the long darkness, not a dramatic light, but a soft one, a warm one, a comforting one, a simple cross on a wooden wall, a whispered prayer before sleep, a quiet belief that they were not alone in the struggles of life. A world held together by people. The kings ruled, the knights protected, the monks preserved, the villagers worked. Together, they formed a delicate balance that kept the world alive through centuries of uncertainty. This balance was not perfect. It was not strong. It was not grand. But it was enough. Enough to protect families. Enough to carry traditions. Enough to keep hope alive. In a world that often felt cold and unpredictable. As night falls across this ancient world, you can imagine the glow of a distant torch, the quiet steps of a knight returning home, the soft murmur of a prayer in a humble chapel, and the steady flame of a candle keeping watch in a monastery. This is the heart of the Dark Ages. Not darkness, but people doing their best to bring light to their own small corner of the world. As the centuries passed, something subtle began to change across Europe. At first, it was barely noticeable. A new tool here, a stronger harvest there, a village that slowly grew into a town. Small sparks of progress, appearing quietly in different corners of the land. The Dark Ages had not been a single moment. They were a long stretch of time, shaped by slow transformation. And now, the world was beginning to shift again. Not suddenly. Not loudly. But gently, like the first light of morning touching a quiet landscape. Farmers discovered new ways to work the soil. Heavier plows cut deeper into the earth. Stronger oxen pulled them across fields that had once been difficult to farm. With better tools came better harvests. And with better harvests came stability. For the first time in generations, families had more than they needed just to survive. They had enough to trade. Enough to share. Enough to build a future that felt larger than their daily routines. Trade routes slowly reopened. Merchants, once afraid to travel, began to journey farther. Caravans moved along restored paths, carrying salt, wool, spices, and stories from distant lands. Every returning traveler brought new ideas, new goods, new possibilities. Towns began to grow. Cobblestone streets replaced dirt paths. Markets formed in open squares. Craftsmen and artisans found places to work and share their skills. The sound of hammers, saws, and chatter filled the air where silence had once reigned. Stone buildings rose slowly, built with patience and determination. Church towers reached toward the sky. Their bells rang out across valleys, marking the passage of time in a way that felt more hopeful, more organized, more connected. Alongside these changes, learning began to return. Not suddenly, and not everywhere at once, but gradually. Monasteries, which had guarded knowledge through darker centuries, now became centers of teaching. Their libraries, once quiet shelters for lonely books, opened their doors to curious minds. Young scribes learned to read. Some learned to write. Others learned to study the world, the stars, the seasons, and the stories of those who came before them. The ancient texts that monks had copied for centuries now began to influence a new generation. Knowledge, once locked away in small, candlelit rooms, spread from valley to valley. People began to ask questions again. They wondered about nature. About the past. About what could be built in the future. In villages, new tools appeared. In towns, new trades grew. On long roads, travelers shared new discoveries. And slowly, painfully slowly, Europe began to breathe again. This new dawn was not dramatic. It did not erase the hardships of the past. But it brought warmth to the cold edges of life. It brought structure to days once shaped by uncertainty. It brought hope to families who had lived with fear for generations. In some places, schools began to form. Simple at first. A teacher with a handful of students. Lessons carved into wooden tablets. Basic numbers. Basic letters. Basic knowledge. But these small seeds would one day grow into great centers of learning. Markets turned into towns. Towns turned into cities. Builders learned new techniques. Stone arches and bridges spread across rivers. Watermills turned with steady rhythm, grinding grain faster than ever before. People traveled more freely. Not in fear, but with purpose. With curiosity. With the desire to see what lay beyond the next hill or forest. Kings began to seek order, not only power. Knights began to follow codes of behavior, not only the demands of battle. Villagers began to feel part of something larger than themselves. A slow awakening was happening. A gentle rising of light after a long, deep night. People no longer lived only for survival. They began to dream again. To imagine. To build. To learn. To hope. The Dark Ages were not ending with a sudden burst of brightness. They were ending like a sunrise, soft, patient, inevitable. A new world was forming. A world that would one day lead to exploration, art, invention, and discovery. A world where ideas would flow freely. A world where the seeds of the future were quietly taking root in the soil of the past. In this moment, as Europe slowly awakened, the gentle glow of progress spread from village to village. It was faint at first, but steady. It grew a little brighter each year. A little warmer. A little stronger. The long night of uncertainty was giving way to a morning filled with possibility. And the world, still fragile, still rebuilding, took its first quiet steps toward a brighter age that waited just beyond the horizon. As the world slowly moved toward a new dawn. Each day still ended the same way it had for centuries. With nightfall gently settling across the land. Night in the Dark Ages was a world of its own. A world shaped by hush. By shadows. By distant sounds. And by the comforting glow of small fires burning quietly in simple homes. There were no lanterns lining the roads. No warm lights in windows stretching across the street. No sound of carriages moving late into the evening. When the sun disappeared, darkness covered everything like a deep blanket. Soft. Complete. All-encompassing. In many villages, the sky was the brightest thing people could see. Millions of stars. Scattered across a vast night. The silver glow of the moon. Illuminated fields. Rooftops. And winding paths. Families gathered inside their homes. As the last light faded behind the hills. Children curled under wool blankets. Parents sat quietly near the hearth. Stirring the last pot of soup. Or whispering gentle words. Before the silence of sleep arrived. The fire crackled softly. Its warm glow flickered on wooden walls. Creating slow-moving shadows. That danced like ancient spirits. Telling old stories without words. Outside. The world belonged to the night. Rustling leaves. Owls calling in distant trees. The faraway howl of an animal wandering through the forest. These sounds were not frightening. They were part of life. Part of the rhythm of the world. A reminder that humans shared their land. With creatures older and wilder than themselves. Inside the home. The quiet deepened. The warmth of the fire spread slowly across the room. The smell of smoke and wood. Mixed with the simple scent of herbs. drying near the wall. This was the time of day when worries softened. Work was done. The fields were resting. The tools were put away. The animals were safe in their pens. The doors were closed. And the world felt smaller. Safer. Closer. Many people told stories at night. Stories passed down for generations. Tales of lost kingdoms. Tales of brave ancestors. Tales of spirits who guarded the woods. Or guided travelers through storms. But the stories were not loud. They were whispered. Calm. Steady. Told slowly. So that the rhythm of the voice matched the slow fading of the fire. These stories were not just entertainment. They were comfort. They were guidance. They were a way to connect to the past. And to imagine a future. Many homes ended the night with quiet prayer. A soft moment of hope. Of gratitude. Or simply a wish for safety through the long hours ahead. Prayer, in those days, was not always formal. Sometimes it was just a breath. A thought. Or a quiet look toward the sky. Before closing tired eyes. Night in the Dark Ages was also a time for reflection. A time to think about the days that had passed. And the ones still to come. People rested. Not because they wanted to. But because the darkness told them to. It invited them. Every evening. Into a space of surrender and peace. As families settled into their small beds. Wrapped in wool. Listening to the fire soften into embers. A gentle calmness filled the air. And in that calm lay something powerful. Something ancient. A sense of being part of a world that was slow, quiet, and deeply connected. The night was not frightening. It was protective. It was a pause before the next day's work. A moment of stillness before another sunrise. It was during these peaceful nights that the people of the Dark Ages found their strength, their patience, and their dreams. Tonight, you rest with them. You sit beside their fires. You listen to their stories. You feel the gentle pull of sleep. As the world outside grows silent and still. And with each passing moment, the darkness becomes softer, safer, warmer. A place where thoughts slow down. And the body begins to let go. This is the quiet transition of night. A moment suspended in time. Where the ancient world meets your breath. And guides you gently toward rest. Night in the Dark Ages did not end quickly. It stretched across long hours. Soft and unbroken. Like a dark river flowing silently through time. In these hours, when the fire had burned low, and the village had grown completely still, people found themselves surrounded by a deep, natural quiet that modern life rarely allows. The world outside the home was peaceful, wrapped in layers of darkness and moonlight. Trees swayed gently in the cold air. The sky shimmered with stars that seemed sharper and brighter than anything seen in today's city lights. And inside the home, in that soft glow from the last embers, families drifted into a slower rhythm. Breaths became deeper. Movements became softer. The quiet settled like a warm blanket over the room. This was the time when thoughts changed their shape. When the mind loosened its grip on the concerns of the day. When worries softened and faded into the background. In the Dark Ages, people often reflected on their lives. In this gentle silence, they thought about the fields they worked, the seasons they lived through, the family they cared for, the land they hoped to pass down to the next generation. Most did not think of grand dreams or great ambitions. Their reflections were simple but meaningful. They thought about the warmth of their home in the cold of winter, about the friendships that carried them through difficult seasons, about the harvest they hoped for in the coming year. There were no clocks to chase, no loud intrusions, no rush, only the slow unfolding of time and the soft rhythm of their own quiet breathing. Some nights, people stepped outside for a moment before sleep. They gazed at the stars and let the cool air brush their skin. They listened to the distant sounds of the natural world, a world that existed long before them and would exist long after. Under that vast sky, they felt small but peaceful. They felt connected to something larger than their village, larger than their daily routines, larger than their fears. This sense of connection was its own form of comfort, a reassurance that life continued with gentle consistency, just as the stars continued their slow paths across the night. Inside the home, children often whispered their final questions before sleep. Why do the seasons change? Where do the animals go in winter? What lies beyond the dark forests that surround our land? Parents answered quietly, not with complete certainty, but with calmness, with kindness, with simple stories passed down from their own parents. The Dark Ages were not a time of scientific understanding, yet people held a deep curiosity about the world around them. They observed the moon moving across the sky. They noticed how different winds brought different weather. They understood the cycles of life in a way that came from direct, daily experience. And in these late hours of the night, they allowed themselves to wonder, to imagine, to reflect in silence on the mysteries of their world. Perhaps you feel the same now, in this moment, sitting with the people of this time, in the quiet of their homes, surrounded by the deep calm of night. Your breath softens, your thoughts loosen, your body grows heavier, in the most gentle way. This reflection is not about the past alone. It is about you, here, now, finding a calm rhythm within your own night. The darkness around you is not empty. It is protective. It is peaceful. It is patient. Just like the people who lived in these ancient times. You too can let the night hold your worries for a while. Let them drift like smoke from a fading fire. Let them dissolve into the quiet air. There is nothing to do now, nothing to fix, nothing to solve. Only this moment, only this breath, only the soft flow of time, guiding you slowly toward rest. As the night deepens, so does your calm. The ancient world grows quieter. Your thoughts grow lighter. Your body prepares to surrender fully, to sleep. This is the deep night, a place where the mind rests, where the past breathes softly, and where the quiet becomes your companion. Soon, you will drift even deeper into a space beyond reflection, a space shaped only by warmth, peace, and the gentle weight of complete rest. The night has reached its quietest moment. The fire is now only faint embers, glowing softly beneath the ash, breathing slow, gentle waves of warm light into the stillness of the room. Outside, the world is silent. No footsteps, no distant voices, Only the soft whisper of the night air, moving through the tall grass, and brushing against the wooden walls of ancient homes. This deep silence is the same silence that carried countless generations into their sleep. It is the silence that followed their long days, their hard work, their simple joys, and their quiet struggles. It is the silence that held them, protected them, and reminded them that rest is not a luxury, but a part of life itself. Now, it holds you too. Feel how the quiet wraps around you like a warm cloak. Soft, safe, calming. Your breath slows. The muscles in your face loosen. Your shoulders grow heavier. Your hands relax. Your body settles deeper into its own gentle weight. Far away, the people of those distant centuries are disappearing into sleep. You can imagine them lying on straw-filled beds, listening to the faint crackle of the fire. As their eyes slowly close, their minds drift into a river of dreams that flows through time, the same way your dreams do now. They were not so different from you. They wanted peace. They wanted warmth. They wanted comfort. After long days, in a world that moved slowly and demanded patience. And now, you share the same night they once knew. The same darkness. The same stillness. The same gentle invitation to let go. Let your thoughts soften. Let them spread out like mist over a quiet field. Nothing needs your attention anymore. Nothing needs to be controlled. Nothing needs to be solved. The story you have traveled through is settling into silence. The voices, the villages, the forests, the stars overhead are fading into calm. You are drifting between waking and dreaming, between past and present, between night and deep rest. If a thought appears, let it pass like a small boat, floating slowly down a dark river. You do not have to follow it. You do not have to analyze it. Just watch it drift until it disappears into the quiet beyond. Your breath is steady. Your heart is calm. Your body is resting with a softness that feels ancient, natural, and deeply human. Feel how your eyelids grow heavier, how your mind begins to blur at the edges, how your awareness loosens its hold and begins to dissolve into the comfort around you. This is the final step in your descent into sleep. A gentle step, a peaceful step, a step taken in complete safety and complete silence. You have traveled far tonight, through history, through distant lands, through forgotten moments, held together by the simple strength of ordinary people. Now, you release all of it. The story becomes quiet. The world becomes soft. And you sink deeper into the warm darkness of the night. There is nothing more to hear. Nothing more to think. Nothing more to feel. Except rest. Let yourself drift. Let yourself fall. Let yourself surrender to the slow, steady pull of sleep. It will take you gently, carefully, patiently, into dreams, into stillness, into the peaceful quiet, where the night holds you, until morning comes. This journey is complete. Your body is ready. Your mind is ready. You are safe. You are calm. You are drifting Fall asleep now. Slowly. Softly. Completely.